Das has got a good run coming out the final turn. Now, is he going to be able to challenge here in the slipstream as he closes up through the toe? Esner can see him coming, moves across to cover the inside line. Das then jinks to the outside. Esner tries to squeeze him back the other way. It's on the brakes, and Andreas Esner just fends off Cameron Das as Das runs wide, and he really romps through, takes the lead as Esner then has to defend from Louis Foster. Robust driving, but Das has taken the advantage.
Yeah, what a brilliant move that was kind of turning out to be before both drivers went wide, and also a brilliant camera angle of seeing that whole move down the pit straight. Louis Foster trying to make the most of it. He's going to try and go down the inside of this hairpin, thinks better of it, but Nazim Azman's closing in as well. We've now got a top four that's very close. The question is, with that move by Cameron Das, he was off track when it occurred. Is he going to be able to keep the position as Azman puts his wheels alongside Foster? Still doesn't make the move, but he is definitely one to get into the podium positions.
He certainly is, and already Cameron Das in the lead of the race, pulling clear. Here is another look then at it as Esner, he covered the inside line as he had to do. Then it was the battle on the brakes, and Esner with the inside line, he just washed out, pushed Cameron Das out wide, and Das would certainly say he had no option but to go right over the asphalt at that moment.
Yeah, it's quite a challenge into that corner, especially when you don't know the closing speeds. It's the first time you've done it all day, and seeing Chovanec, a replay of the start. All of the cars made a fairly decent start. No one particularly bogged down, and that's because, you know, they've had 2 attempts at this already this weekend, so they know what to do. But it's the power of the slipstream. The cars further back, you know, they can get so much faster than the cars ahead because that hole in the air is being punched for them.
So really intriguing start to the race. Another look at that run down towards turn 1, and unfortunately they're all cleanly through. As now Andreas Esner under threat here for Louis Foster, and Foster knows if he's going to stand a chance of winning this one, he needs to clear Esner as quickly as possible, as they all run out very, very wide through the first corner. All of this is enabling Das already to build up an advantage, the best part of 1.5 seconds. So at the moment it's looking reasonably good for the American to do the clean sweep here in Portimao this weekend. The fight for second though is 3 or 4 cars strong, as Foster closes up under braking behind Esner, and that VAR car just looks a little bit twitchy mid-turn, possibly was done with the setup, and so Foster all over his tail, right in behind the rear wing as they climb up out of the tight corner over the crest, and this is great wheel-to-wheel racing.
Yeah, it's brilliant stuff so far. Louis Foster clearly has the pace to attack for second. You see the different lines drivers are taking into these corners, and obviously with this undulation as well, you know, you can't even see the apexes of the corners half the time. So the drivers do have to pick as they're coming over the crest and hope that they're going as close to the curb as possible. A slight lock up there by Esner, but he's holding ahead of Foster. You can see him in his mirrors, and given neither of these drivers featured at the front in yesterday's race, we don't truly know their race pace. We know Das's race pace, he won 2 races in a row. Both these guys were in the pits, they pitted for fresh tyres, but were on high fuel loads, so don't really know how they can perform in these conditions.
Although we do know that Louis Foster was on the podium in race 1 and on pole in qualifying, so he's got level of pace, but Andreas Esner is a little bit the wild card, and again Esner covers the inside line early. Oh, that's a lovely dart across from Louis Foster, who looks to challenge. Very, very rapid change of direction. Again, pretty much out towards the Mediterranean from Andreas Esner there through turn 1. I just wonder if the stewards are going to start to think about pinging him, because you could argue that by keeping his foot in there, he gained a little bit of an advantage. And as they battle with each other, Nazim Azman is in a position to challenge, as again Esner covers the inside line into the hairpin. Foster looks to the outside. He'll try for the switch back. That's well defended though from Andreas Esner. Just forces Foster to the outside, but Foster gets greater exit speed, draws alongside as they hit the brakes, and Louis Foster should go through into the right-hander. Indeed he does. Really well executed move as Azman overcommits, trying to challenge Esner, and that allows Trulli through. And oh no, Andreas Esner's got a problem. He slows completely as Enzo Trulli goes third.
Yeah, what a brilliant move. Very opportunistic by Enzo Trulli. They're staying on the inside. Nazim Azman, who had also tried to go but went too deep. Casper Stevenson and then Josh Mason. Esner's now out of our picture, so he's dropped back significantly. I think he kind of put 2 wheels on the gravel almost. We're going to see a replay here. Foster leading the pack, and then Azman goes wide.
He's got a puncture. He was tagged by Azman. That's what it would be. Oh, and how close to Josh Mason coming to pile into that car.
Yeah, and hopefully he can get it back to the pits, because that tyre is still just about staying up. It's off the rim, and the replay ends for, we see the absolute result of that. Coming to the end of that, another fastest lap by Cameron Das. He is already 4.8 seconds clear of Louis Foster. Incredible performance. Enzo Trilli in third, Nazim Azman in fourth, Josh Mason in fifth. And actually Josh Mason is going to go for a move on Casper Stevenson, takes the inside line into turn one and gets the move done. Very good job.
Impressive stuff this from Josh Mason today. It really shows just how much Andres Esner was keeping the rest of the field bunched behind him. The battle now is the one for third though, because Enzo Trilli in yesterday's second race, you'd argue, had podium pace. Now is the chance for him to prove it with clear air, as he's got Azman behind him. Then Josh Mason on a move, trying to close that gap down as well. Azman, I don't think he's damaged his front wing when he tagged Andres Esner. The German driver now in the pit lane, as Mason looks to try and close up. He is bringing Casper Stevenson and then Rafael Villagomez with him for company. Villagomez was the driver who had to take evasive action as Esner slowed. So he's got a little bit of ground to make up as they come over the crest. Then it's a slight gap back to Zdeněk Chauvenet in 8th position. What about Jack Crawford? Well, he's in the points in 10th as the Van Amersfoort Racing team pop a new rear tyre on for Andres Esner. But for him to score points, he's going to need some casualties in order to really progress up through the order.
But he could try his race 2 strategy again and go for fastest lap here, because that does earn you 1 extra point, even if he finishes in his current 13th position. It's taken a while there. You know, he would have hoped not to have had any suspension damage from the car kind of rubbing against the floor with that deflated left rear tyre. Das has got his lead up to 5 seconds now, and I think, you know, he's won this race almost, you could say.
Well, I think you called it right about that aim for the point for fastest lap there for Andres Esner. It looks as if the team are about to take a whole chunk of rear wing out of the rear of the car and almost do a miniature qualifying run. As there is the Red Bull back car of Jack Crawford. He has got Enzo Sciolti just in behind him. Then Vivian Kestei, the Hungarian, as will go back to the fight for third. And this is really where the battle is with Enzo Trilli. He also leads the rookie trophy. A little bit adrift of Louis Foster, and then with Nazim Azman just behind him. Josh Mason, the second of the white cars in that train, upwardly mobile. And Josh has shown podium pace this weekend. He spun away his chances in race 1, but this is looking much more stable for Josh this afternoon as Esner rejoins the fray. But he's well over a lap down and has only really got fastest lap to hunt for.
What he's going to have to hope for here is that the drivers ahead are squabbling so much he can close in on them and benefit from the slipstream if he has indeed run less wing. Hopefully you think as well they've changed all 4 tyres if he wants to go faster rather than just the one that delaminated. But, you know, we have got a set amount of tyres he can use during this weekend, so they're probably tyres he has already used earlier in this weekend at Algarve that he's put back on the car now. So watching the battle further ahead right now, there's a huge gap between first and second, a slightly smaller gap between second and third, but Trilli's got his mirrors totally full there.
Yeah, Nazim Azman, I wonder if he's going to be able to learn a little bit from what Cameron Das was doing in the race yesterday in terms of taking a different line through that final turn, just to propel himself along the start and finish straight that little bit quicker as they head into the braking zone for turn 1. And Azman jinks behind, tries to fill Trilli's mirrors. Josh Mason just sitting there in 5th, not in the dirty air so much, so he may have a little bit more tyre life available to him later on in the race. For now, Enzo Trilli, he's making Nazim Azman do all the hard work, just sticking to the racing line, seeing what the Malaysian is able to offer in terms of a challenge. Brakes, closes up a little bit, and it's happened a couple of times into that hairpin that Azman just seems to overcommit into the hairpin under braking, and he's not really putting the driver in front under any pressure, but he is possibly putting a little bit more strain through the tyres. Yeah,
I think he's trying to carry as much apex speed as possible, but in the process kind of going too fast into the corner, and that obviously hurts you on the exit. As we see a replay further back, Jack Crawford making progress up the order, overtaking, that is the number 88 car of Philippe Camignard, so that would be for 9th place at the moment, I believe. So he is making good progress, and given he hasn't driven this car at all in the last 2 days, you know, he is learning with every lap here.
He really is. I'm thoroughly enjoying this battle for third, as we are probably approaching about 1/3 race distance. Enzo Trilli has got a fair amount to go, but at the same time, the pace that he is running at is allowing him, Azman, and Mason just to open up a little bit of daylight over Casper Stevenson in 6th position. Here is the race leader, Cam Dass. We've not seen masses of him, mainly because he's 6 seconds up the road ahead of Louis Foster, as Foster's got a little bit of a buffer, 2.5 seconds or so over Enzo Trulli. And again, Asman, will he carry the apex speed through turn 1? He does, but you can see the car just washing out slightly as he turned in. He's right in the turbulent air behind Enzo Trulli, and so he's pushing really hard without gaining masses of an advantage at the moment.
Yeah, we spotted yesterday that Trulli ran less rear wings, so that essentially made his car faster in a straight line. It's slightly difficult to see if he's doing the same today, but that will help him down the pit straight. If Asman is the faster driver, but Trulli's got greater straight line speed, then that's going to be able to keep him ahead.
Trulli, though, that time a little bit wider coming out of the hairpin than Nazim Asman. Now, is that a sign of Trulli just beginning to push a little bit harder? Or when he slithers out, it looked like he slithered out very wide. In fact, it was deceptive camera angle. But again, Asman, he's using about 6 inches left road on all the corner exits at the moment, but still able to stay with the car in front. Yeah,
and you can see the car sliding over the crest. So I imagine these tyres have already had quite a bit of work put into them, and the driver's already on the limit. Trulli getting a little too much curve there, so Asman's going to get the run. He's going to get the slipstream as well as it comes around. Asman's already ducked out. He's gone down the inside. He has taken 3rd position. So coming into final sector lap, Trulli's going to try and respond. He cuts him off. And they're going into the final few corners now. Asman has got that position. That was a really nicely done move by Nazim Asman. Now the key for him is, can he break clear through the final turn, because that means that Trulli won't be able to challenge along the start and finish straight, as Dass is already through and into the distance, 6.5 seconds clear of Foster, who's now 3.5 seconds up on Nazim Asman. And Enzo Trulli, even with the shortened camera angle, doesn't appear to be close enough to challenge into turn 1. There is a challenge behind, though, and it is Jack Crawford to the inside of Zdeněk Šuvenak, and through goes Crawford. Also a good battle behind as Enzo Scionti there. He is in the white car, all over the tail of Philip Canaras, as the two of them dice. Crawford making great progress up through the order. Vivian Castelli also part of that battle, the last couple of points positions. You wonder how many positions Crawford could gain. He started this race in 13th place. He pretty quickly made it into the points. He's now ahead of Chovanec, so he's in 8th place. That's 5 positions gained from the start of this race in only 9 laps, so great job.
And also, as much as anything, just the adrenaline building through the weekend of sitting on the sidelines to stay cool and composed is very impressive as well for Crawford. He's gained 5 places since the start of the race. His next target is going to be Rafael Villagomez, who's a little bit further on up the road. He's got several laps now in clear air as Enzo Scionti and Vivian Castelli reignite their fight from yesterday. And Scionti kicks the tail of that DriveX car out down the crest.
We saw that with Trulli as well. Both of those cars are getting a little wide over the crest and taking way too much curb, and that's slowing them as they go back down the hills, allowing the drivers behind to close in. We're coming to our 10th lap of the race now. Cameron Dass 6.88 seconds ahead of Louis Foster. Huge gap. He doesn't have to worry about the fight from behind right now, but Trulli's still in the slipstream of Nazim Asman. He won't be able to take a move into turn 1, but Josh Mason's getting close as well in 5th place.
Yeah, Josh Mason could be the upwardly mobile driver here. He is latching onto the tail of Enzo Trulli, as Mason, graduate from the British Formula 3 Championship. Enzo Trulli, relatively speaking, less experienced. He's raced in UAE Formula 4. He is the son, as you may have gathered, from the surname of the former F1 race winner Jarno Trulli. So he spent lots of time around motorsport during his formative years, as they still continue to chase down Nazim Asman. But Asman can fraction of a second or so each lap.
Yeah, it's going to get pretty difficult to get the bigger margins once the tyres get older and older, because they just have less life in them, essentially, to push to the limit. And with these increasing temperatures as well, you know, it's just gone past midday in the south of Portugal, so that's going to put extra pressure on the car as well.
It certainly will, as no particular shuffling of the battle for third so far on this lap, as they're climbing through the third and final sector of the lap. Oh, nice shot there. You could really see Josh Mason fighting the wheel a little bit, and it cost him a 10th or so to Enzo Trulli. And they have still got Casper Stevenson and Rafael Villagomez as well, not too far behind them either. And maybe the Pan Am Sport racing drivers will find find their setup coming to them a little bit later in the race, as up over the crest, through to complete the lap. Meanwhile, Vivian Castelli goes side by side with Enzo Scionti through the final turn. Brave stuff from both of them. It's going to be a sprint now down the straight towards the first turn. This the battle for 11th position, and Castelli is through for now, but Scionti then ducks into the slipstream on the brakes. And is he going to launch to the inside? He does, and fortunately Vivian Castelli sees him in her mirrors and decides to back out of it to avoid an incident.
Yeah, some great racing by both of them there, and it is, you know, it's outside the points positions at the moment, but you never know what's going to happen next, so it's always good to get as high up the order as you can. We're seeing battling take place further on as well. Gap up front, 7.8 seconds now. Nazim Asman in third place, 11 seconds behind. You know, he's not safe in third place at the moment because Enzo Trulli is still just a second behind him.
He certainly isn't, and you never know just what sort of tactical elements are going to come into play as well. We're just over half race distance as Scionti, again, that car looking a little bit lurid, kicks up the gravel big time. Castelli again backs out of it, just waiting to see how Scionti regains his line, and then thinks about launching to the inside at the top of the hill before the road plunges down like the roller coaster. Great scrap between the pair of them.
Yeah, and Enzo Sconti's car, as I said before, is just getting way too loose over the crest, and that gravel we actually spat out onto the track there. Castelli not only had to avoid him, but had to avoid the gravel that was being pushed back onto the surface, because that will reduce her grip. And his tyres are going to lose, well, would have lost quite a bit of grip going through the next few corners. No punctures though, which is always good to avoid. You can see the cloud of dust that put up as well.
And they're big old bits of gravel as well, aren't they, relative to these cars, as Jack Crawford is steadily encroaching into Rafael Villagomez. And that gap was 1.3 seconds a few moments ago. It's down to, it was down to 1.1 over the line as Vivian Castelli darts to the inside of Enzo Scionti into turn one. So this seesaw battle is back in favour of the Hungarian driver, former point scorer in the W Series. As the tail of Scionti's car is looking close to something you'd see from Colin McRae than a single-seater. And it's a combination of long weekend, but also dicing wheel to wheel. You just sometimes can't be quite as precise.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Colin McRae, you know, having more mobility at the rear does help you get turned around corners. It gets you to the apex quicker. However, it does come at the cost of, you know, if the rear end goes too far out, then you've lost control of the car. We're now seeing his teammate Enzo Trulli in fourth place, still being chased by Joshua Mason in fifth. That's a 0.669 second gap between those two. That was around a second 2 or 3 laps ago. So Mason is getting closer. Mason will definitely want to make up for the race 1 and 2 results, which didn't quite go his way, but he definitely had the pace to be, you know, in the battle for the podium.
He's certainly going to be one to watch this season, isn't he, Josh Mason, for R Racing, as they heads downhill again. The car just twitches as the pitch of the corner changes. He's not quite close enough to challenge Enzo Trulli on this occasion, while front of the field, having set fastest lap, racing Cameron Das is on course to make it a clean sweep for the weekend. And barring disaster, it doesn't look as if Louis Foster is going to be able to do anything about chasing down the best part of 9 seconds over the course of the next few laps. As Enzo Trulli seems to have slipped away a little bit from the car of Nazim Asman, and is, relatively speaking, a little bit closer to Josh Mason. Mason is in that tricky zone, isn't he, Elliot, where he's able to catch up in clear air fairly easily, but as soon as he gets into the turbulent wake, he's really struggling to make up those last couple of tenths of a second.
Yeah, that does, compromises particularly your corner entries. You know, the car's going to be unstable at the front end. That not only makes it harder to overtake, but actually just makes it harder to hit the apex as you want to. However, later on you go into the race as well, the tyres are going to get warmer, they're going to get more worn. It's just going to be harder to stick to that line all the time, particularly when there's a car just ahead of you. As we go back to our leader, Cameron Das, 9 seconds up the road now in 12 laps, so he's done a brilliant job so far. He is definitely on course for victory here. It would be the second time someone has taken 3 wins in a Euroformula weekend. First person who did it was Yiffy Ye at the Barcelona season finale last year, which was a quadruple header, an unprecedented 4-race weekend. Cameron Das is going to follow that up in the race weekend immediately after that, because this is the first round of 2021. So you know, history being made potentially.
It has been a very, very impressive start to the season from Das, and also because of the revised format for this year, it's not as if he started from pole to win each race. He has he's taken one victory from second on the grid. He is on course to take another victory from second on the grid. And then yesterday, second race, he won from sixth on the grid. So he has to pass cars to get to the front of the field as Cam Das. And once he's done that, then he has been able to really drive away from them and stamp his authority on the weekend. Has got the race clock ticking down, but just to remind you, it's 19 laps or 35 minutes, and unless we have a safety car period, we're unlikely to hit the 35-minute time limit.
Yeah, and it's been very impressive. You know, we haven't had a safety car so far this weekend, given the inexperience of a lot of these drivers. We're currently watching Zdeněk Chovanec being chased by Filip Kameniars. That was around 3 or 4 seconds about 5 laps ago, so potentially Chovanec's made a mistake we haven't seen, because he is being chased very closely by Kameniars now, and Jack Crawford, who overtook him earlier, is now on the tail of Rafael Villagomez up ahead of them.
Well, let's see if it's going to be a salad day for the Smarto back car of Filip Kameniars in terms of a late race move up through the order, a couple more points possibly ahead of Zdeněk Chovanec. But again, what's been really enjoyable this weekend is that wherever we've looked through the field, there has been some great wheel-to-wheel dicing.
Yeah, the Dallara 320 car in the first year of use last year didn't always have the best racing because it was still in development. You know, teams didn't know the optimal setups for all these circuits because it was the first time they were visiting them with this car. Now they've tested at this circuit over winter, and they've driven at 8 circuits in the race weekends. They know where this car is strong, you know how much wing you can take away and still be quick around the corners while still having a slipstream.
Jack Crawford has closed that gap down to Rafael Villagomez over the course of the last 3 laps. There he is, the American, 16 years old today, and he's been on the sidelines all weekend, starts from the back of the grid, and he is absolutely carving his way up through the pack.
Yeah, he's doing a brilliant job. He came second in the ADAC Formula 4 Championship last year, also won a few races in Italy, so he hasn't driven this circuit on a race weekend. He also did NACAM Formula 4 over in Mexico and a bit of USF 2000, so a lot of single-seater experience, but in machines that don't really have the aerodynamic dependency that the Dallara 320 does in Euroformula. Now, he won't be able to make a pass at any of these corners, but he's very tail happy through that corner, and as long as he stays on the tail of Villagomez, he should be able to get a slipstream down the pit straight and line up and move there.
He certainly should be. So this is the battle for 7th position, but what's been so impressive is that this was a gap that was 1.3 seconds a couple of laps ago. It's down to under 3/10, so Crawford considers having a little bit of a look into the hairpin on the hill. Thinks better of it, but he's right in with Rafael Villagomez as they plunge on downhill. Crawford running with Team Motor Park, who, if serves correctly, also ran Yuki Tsunoda in Red Bull colours 2 years ago before the Japanese has moved on up to Formula 1 with AlphaTauri this year. So there is the second place man at the front of your screen, Louis Foster. We look in the background, and here comes Crawford, and he's already alongside Villagomez as the pair of them run side by side along the start and finish straight. It's not even going to be a battle on the brakes because Crawford is through and gains the place.
Yeah, and he did a good job there to actually squeeze him to the outside of the track to make sure he couldn't return through turn 2 and then turn 3. So he's kept that position through the first few corners. He's now going to be chasing down Casper Stevenson. Now, we've seen the gaps he's been able to close in the first segments of this race. There's not many laps to go, so it's going to be harder for him to track down Stevenson, but we know he could potentially do it.
Let's see, he has... Oh, and there's a spin. It's Vivian Kestei who has spun at a halt. Hopefully she's been able to keep the engine going. Yes, she has, and rejoins. I'm sure we'll find out in due course what happened. Rejoins after, well, in a fashion. I hope she's not lost the engine. She, hopefully there's a gear in there somewhere. But what that has done is certainly taken her out of any hope of scoring points this afternoon. And that isn't brilliant, the way that car's rolling.
No, she's just been overtaken by Andreas Essner, who is, of course, a lap down in this race. He's been going for fastest lap. And since an early puncture, Kastei's got it going. So let's see a replay of what actually happened there. She's at the back of shot, loses the rear end, locks the front brakes, locks the rear brakes, slides to a halt, gets the car stopped very quickly. But the problem with that is then you stall the engine, and it makes it harder to get it going again. We're now following Josh Mason going through the final corner. He's still chasing down actually Enzo Trulli at the moment. So 0.7 seconds between them. That's kind of the gap it's been for several laps now. Looking down the pit straight, he's not going to be close enough going into turn 1, and there's only a handful of laps to go now.
Yeah, only probably 2 or 3 to go, and this has been the story of Josh Mason's race. Great pace, but once he got stuck on Trulli, unable to make much progress. Meanwhile, here is the Chovanec-headed battle for 9th place, and no change in that order. Just trying every which way to gain a little bit of an advantage there, Philippe Caminaraz, and at the moment, not quite able to prize the opening.
Yeah, it's going to get more difficult the older the tyres get. I think Chovanec really wants this result. We can see the Venezuelan flags on the side of his car. He's actually racing as a Portuguese driver this weekend, so don't be confused by the signage there. We can see the tomato sponsorship on Caminaz's car. You know, there's great tomato vineyards or wherever you grow tomatoes in Portugal.
Not a vineyard, that would be grapes, I think, wouldn't it?
I don't know.
Well, wherever they... Yeah, we know about racing cars, allegedly, certainly not about horticulture.
Yeah, but we do know it's a very nice scenery around here in the south of Portugal. You know, it's a great place to hold Euroformula, it's a great place to hold F1. And actually, Caminaz is closer to Chovanec than he has been at the start of this lap, so he's going to be eyeing up a move. He's going to try to draw alongside, tucks back in behind. There wasn't enough room there. 2 bites of the steering wheel to get through that corner. Coming round, they're starting to go back downhill, so that's going to be easy. It goes really tight again. The Motorpark and Crypto Tower drivers do tend to go tighter through this final sector of the lap. They seem more comfortable hugging the curb to get the car rotated. And he follows Chovanec further downhill and then back uphill down the pit straight. We've just seen Cameron Das cross the line at the front of the pitch at 10.5 seconds now at the front.
He's going to have a good run here, and he's going to look to the inside, and that should be the pass. Chovanec tries to defend it, but he can't, and so we have the swap for 9th position. Really nicely judged move there from Philippe Caminaz as Chovanec tries to draw alongside him, and Caminaz reminds me of his compatriot a little bit, Igor Walilko, in terms of his willingness just to go wheel to wheel at any moment, as now Chovanec looks to fight back as they go over the crest. Chovanec's going to have the inside line here for the hairpin. He fancies it on the brakes. Oh, Caminaz looking for the switch back, and he almost pulls it off perfectly, but he just had to back out of it.
Yeah, that was very clean racing by both of them. Actually, Caminaz in the exit turn 4 almost jumped over the curbs because there was that little room left at the side of the track, and that could have sent him flying. You can actually see how much bite he's taking the steering wheel when he runs over the curbs again at the previous corner. So that gap's opened up between Chovanec and Caminaz again. I think these guys will be battling to the end of the race.
The other battle to watch for is that Jack Crawford is now just 0.4 of a second adrift of Casper Stevenson, as if by magic. Director cuts to the fight as now Crawford is going to try and look to chase Stevenson down through the final turn, make the move in towards turn 1. Cameron Das has started the last lap of the race, so this is the last roll of the dice here for Jack Crawford, and he might be close enough to make the move. It is going to come down, I would imagine, to the braking zone, because he's not near enough to do it on the way down the straight. He's going to burst out the bubble at the last moment. Thinks better of it, just picks his braking point. But we could yet see a switch for 6th position between now and the checker flag.
And just ahead of them, Josh Mason is all over the back of Enzo Trulli, half a second behind him. So we could see several changes of position here, but there's not too many overtaking opportunities. Coming over the crest at turn 4, going into turn 5, then you have the hairpin. That's going to be one place they're going to be looking at, but it's going to be difficult.
And this is also the fight for 2nd and 3rd in the rookie trophy, as Stevenson snatches a break, and that is Crawford's opportunity. But it's Casper Stevenson will have the inside line for the next turn, but that is not deterring Jack Crawford at all as they come up over the crest. It's well defended in the event from Casper Stevenson, but Crawford just seems to have a little bit more life in his tyres, and possibly a little bit more confidence through this final lap as they come up over the crest in the hill. And this track a real roller coaster onto the tabletop. You can launch the inside if you're feeling particularly optimistic. As into the final turn, meanwhile, comes Cameron Das, and it is going to be a clean sweep here in Portimao for Cameron Das. The American driver makes it 3 from 3 for Team Motorpark to open the 2021 Euroformula Open season. Cam Das takes the win. He is delighted, as well he should be. Another thoroughly dominant performance as Louis Foster racks up his 2nd podium of the weekend in 2nd place, and 3rd to Nazim Azman again for the Malaysian, his third trip to the podium. Enzo Trulli home in fourth, and he wins the rookie trophy ahead of Josh Mason, and Casper Stevenson does just hold off Jack Crawford with Rafael Villagomez across the line in eighth.
Yeah, a brilliant race there. And Cameron Dass sets the fastest lap in the final lap, 36.501. A brilliant lap there. We're seeing a battle going to the very finish. That's Zdeněk Chovanec and Filip Kaminiars, and Chovanec finishes just ahead.
That was a wonderful fight between the pair of them. Enzo Schionti across the line in 11th as well. He was right in the hunt for the points all the way to the flag as well. But for Cam Dass, really can't have asked for an awful lot more from this weekend. 3 race victories, and not just race victories, they've been dominant wins, haven't they? He's been in races 1 and 3 the best part of 10 seconds clear of the rest of the field. It took him longer to get to the front in race 2, but even so, he was able to build up an advantage, and that really lays down a marker for the rest of the season.
Yeah, in race 2 was particularly very impressive in how strategic his driving was, and when he was picking his way up the order. He's going to be giving the thumbs up to all the marshals at the track. It's become a Cameron Dass tradition since his first win on Saturday. He's done it on each cool-down lap, seeing the cars behind. They're going to try and pick up a little bit more rubber on these tyres as they go around this final lap, because there's not much time between now and the next round at Paul Ricard.
No, we're in Paul Ricard in the south of France in just a fortnight's time. Again, another triple-header race weekend, as they are all this season. So do make sure that you join us for that. And then it's from Paul Ricard on to Spa in late June, and that is always one of the highlights of the season from Spa-Francorchamps. It's off to the Hungaroring in mid-July, then Imola in late July, ahead of the summer break before we finish the season in the Red Bull Ring, and then Monza and Barcelona, the latter round coming right at the tail end of October. So a great tour of Europe's finest motor racing circuits to look forward to. The Euroformula Open this year, all Formula 1 circuits, and this weekend in front of the Formula 1 paddock it has been Cameron Dass, who has been unbeatable. 3 victories from 3 races.
We get the Formula 1 thing to celebrate victory. Very special occasion. So a lot of these cars will go straight into garages after doing weigh-ins and stuff like that to make sure they're all legal. But these 3 drivers, they're going to get to go on the Formula 1 podium at Algarve. See Cameron Dass celebrating 3 wins out of 3 this weekend. The Stars and Stripes will be back on the top step of the podium.
They will once more, and really, really fine performance. He knows that he has done pretty much all that has been asked from him this weekend. Congratulations from the team, and Team Motor Park continuing their very, very fine form in the Euroformula Open.
Yeah, we've got Enzo Trulli here. He's gone to the 3rd place spot. Louis Foster there doesn't look particularly happy, and I don't think you can be happy with 2nd place when you're aiming for victory. But after the difficulties of his weekend and the brake problems, it is great to see him getting a good result to finish off his weekend.
So I wonder if we had a penalty somewhere for Nazim Azman. If we did, it didn't come up on the graphics, but it looks like Enzo Trulli. He's been waved into 3rd place. He also claims the rookie trophy honours, and well, this weekend it's been all Cameron Dass, but I think that belies just how competitive the championship is going to be this year, because we have seen some great pace elsewhere through the field. Now let's have a look then at the final classification. And so Cameron Dass takes the win, 11 seconds clear of Louis Foster. Enzo Trulli in 3rd, Nazim Azman then to 4th. Obviously he picked up a couple of seconds penalty somewhere. Josh Mason in 5th. Maybe that was the contact with Esther actually for Azman. Josh Mason in 5th, Casper Stevenson in 6th, Jack Crawford very impressive 7th on his debut, Rafael Villagomez in 8th, ahead of Zdeněk Chovanec and Filip Kaminiars, with then Enzo Schionti, Vivian Castelli and Andreas Essner. Frustrating day from pole position for the German. Picked up that puncture mid-race and then wasn't able to rectify that to fastest lap.
Yeah, and with Trulli on the podium, that means we have the son of a Formula 1 race winner and the son of a British Touring Cars Croft pole sitter, I think, on the same podium, which is definitely a first in motorsport.
Well, it's certainly a unique record that you know, future generations will aspire to equal, as waiting to be announced up onto the rostrum. So it's been a really impressive debut weekend in the championship for Enzo Trulli. He's shown really mature racecraft, earned very, very good pace, a big step up in terms of car performance from Formula 4 from Trulli. So he claims the rookie trophy and 3rd overall.
second place. After that will be Crypto Tower Racing Team's Louis Foster. A great end to his weekend after the difficulties of race 2, giving a little fist bump. You know, drivers do have to stay socially distanced on this podium, but you know, it's a closed environment now. Drivers did a very good job.
They certainly have. For Cameron Das, well, he knows exactly where to go on the rostrum, because for the 3rd time in succession, he takes his place on the top step of the podium for Team Motor Park. Triple victory in Portimao for Cameron Das and Team Motor Park to kick off the 2021 Euroformula Open season. He hoists his trophy aloft, and I expect they are going to make merry with the bubbly this time around.
The winning team as well.
Thumbs up from Louis Foster as well. That was a really good performance from Foster, from 5th on the grid to finish in 2nd. Surely he will be in contention for victories as the season unfolds. So celebration time in Portimao. 3 delighted drivers and a very delighted member of Team Motor Park. Cameron Das gets absolutely soaked, which means it's a good moment to say, on behalf of Elliot Wood and myself, Ben Evans, thank you very much for joining us in Portugal this weekend. We hope you've enjoyed the action as much as we've enjoyed bringing it to you, and we will see you in 2 weeks' time in Paul Ricard.